Good evening and welcome to a regularly scheduled meeting of the Ulysses Town Board. It is March 25th, 2025, and I will call this meeting to order. And may we please have a roll call?
Sure. Ms. Murphy, present. Mr. Goldman.
Present.
Ms. Olson.
Present.
Ms. Bouchard.
Present.
Mr. Boggs.
Present.
Okay, we have a meeting agenda that was posted. I would like to add, if the board is agreeable, I would like to add an item related to the Tatum engineering proposal that is behind your resolutions in your packet. That relates to, would be an item under item C. And it is just over my capacity to approve. And it's related to doing an energy study. So we can figure out if we're capable of moving forward with the current proposal for the NYSERDA project. And so if you mind adding that to 7C, that would be appreciated. And then Mary, can you remind me that I don't skip over it?
Sure.
Because you always catch me when I do. Any other changes or alterations that need to be added? Then accept a motion to approve as presented or as amended.
Move to approve as amended.
Thank you very much. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that brings us to privilege of the floor. Everyone present or online is welcome to up to 3 minutes to introduce themselves, their residents, and I will go back and forth in person and then online, as I always do. And I do know that the topic of the town potential park donation is engendering a lot of feelings. And I would just like ask that everybody, and there hasn't been a problem, so let me say that there has not been a problem, but let's just be respectful of everybody and let them have their piece, and then we will move on. And there's also a second privilege of the floor at the end of the meeting. Is there anybody? Oh, and I have a timer. So when the timer goes off, please respect that. If you have written comments, you can provide them to the town clerk if you'd like. So we can go back and forth. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sage Peak. I'm in the town of Ulysses. I live on Cold Springs Road. So I have prepared remarks and I have a copy of it. So I live just a few houses down from the land where Allison and Marvin Pritz have so generously offered to donate for the creation of a new recreation park on Cold Springs Road. And I'm here tonight to voice my full support for this proposal. My husband and I moved to Tompkins County 18 years ago to raise our children in a community that values education, justice, and the greater good. And from the beginning, we were welcomed with open arms. We have some of the best neighbors anyone could ask for. Educators, volunteer firefighters, medical professionals, people who dedicate their time and energy to improving the lives of others. And their commitment to service is inspiring and one of the many reasons we love where we live. Transforming this land into a public park reflects those same values. It creates a space for kids to play, neighbors to gather, people of all ages to connect with nature and one another. And it's a kind of investment that makes our community stronger. Some concerns have been raised about safety, specifically that Cold Springs Road isn't safe for walking or biking. And I'd like to push back on that. I walk that road frequently with my dogs, as well as many people here do, and people bike on it all the time. It's a country road with room on the shoulders, and like anywhere, there's room for improvement, signage, increased awareness, maybe even lowering the speed limit, but it's already regularly used. It's also disappointing to hear some of the opposition framed as environmental or safety concerns, especially when it's coming from individuals who don't live here full time. These are secondary homes owned by individuals with the means to live elsewhere full time. And one of these properties is rented out as a short-term rental. These concerns feel less about environment and more about personal preference and what benefits them most. There's a meaningful difference between true community-minded concern and resistance rooted in self-interest. I understand that not everyone will agree and change can be uncomfortable, but we can't let a not in my backyard mentality stop us from saying yes to something that will bring lasting value to our entire community. Often the loudest voices are in the opposition. And so tonight I want to make sure that voices for the park are heard as well. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. If you want to bring them up, we'll make sure they get to Carissa. Thank you so much. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? So you can raise your hand or wave, come on video. Okay. Reserve that right. Anybody else in the room who wishes to address the town board tonight? Please go ahead.
Diane, Cold Springs Road. We love living on Cold Springs Road as well. We walk the road a lot and we enjoy the very quiet country setting. And I think it's very easy to say how something like this is needed, and I can see why. But there are some folks who live right by who are going to suffer at everybody else's game, and that's not okay. We want you to look into another entrance area.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Yes, Jay Hart.
Hi, this is actually Patty Porter with Jay Hart. And when I look out my painting studio window, I am looking at the proposed park. And I'm not against having a park there. I've raised 2 children who were athletic, and I know how important that is. But one of the reasons I moved to Cold Springs Road was because I used to live on South Hill, right near Ithaca College, near right above the 2 streets where all of the where all the students were housed off campus. And it was noisy. It was noisy on weekends. It was noisy all night long to 2 and 3 in the morning. So for me to support this, I want to know what our town is going to do to limit access, say after 8 o'clock at night, that there would be no lights, that the access road would be closed at a certain time so that our privacy could still be maintained. I'd also be concerned that perhaps some pine trees, and Marvin knows he has a beautiful row of pine trees right behind my property, and it gives him privacy, it gives me privacy. But I wonder if pine trees could be planted on the edges of the properties that look right on this field to give them some privacy too. And thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? I'm sorry, you already had your.
Diane, Dan,
Yeah, but you've already had your 3 minutes of your time. I'm sorry.
maybe later.
We have another privilege of the floor. Is there anybody else who wishes to address the town board? Anybody else online who wishes to address the town board? One more time back in person. Diane, if you can be real fast, please go ahead.
Well, I just have a couple of ideas on the entrance. There's a field on Halseyville Road, which aligns with the direct boundary all along the back of the houses there behind us. And there's also a property around the corner on Cold Springs Road between the corner of Halseyville and Cold Springs. And the next house, there's an open field, there's a small field, and possibly a road could go in there and again, a turn left. Along the back.
Thank you. Okay, final call. Anybody else, either in person or online? Please go ahead.
Yes, I'd just like to go ahead and make a comment if I could.
Oh, sure, please go ahead.
My name is Matt Taves. I'm with the middle school PE teacher. I'd just like to comment in favor for the park, just like the recreation center that was voted down not too long ago. I feel like more youth could use these spots, and I feel like Trumansburg is a pretty safe area. I don't think it's going to be as used delinquently like South Hill in a sense, and I feel like this town would do due diligence to make it safe. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, I saw a hand in here. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Ben Darford, 32 Wake Street. I'll say kind of the same things. I look forward to having more recreational park opportunities in the town. I think it's a great opportunity for the town. And I have every faith that, through this process, this board and the other boards in the town, we can sort out how to listen to these concerns, address them, mitigate them, and still make sure that we're balancing the needs of the town with the needs of folks who live nearby.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board? Okay, going once, going twice. Sold, moving on to our next item of business. Thank you very much for everybody who's attending and everybody who is participating in the privilege of the floor. It really is appreciated. Okay, we have a pretty much biannual update from our recreation department.
This is fun.
This is, yep, wherever you want to sit, we got a chair on either side.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Will Glennon, our recreation director.
Yes, Will Glennon, Recreation Director. Thank you for having me here. So I repeat that multiple times. I'm here also to talk about that space, which I believe is needed for the village of Trumansburg and the town of Ulysses for recreational space, not just for youth, but also for adults. We have in our town now, we offer both youth and adult programming for people to use. This would allow us to have more opportunity to offer more programs or even to have unstructured programming into a space and the flexibility to be able to do that. Right now, and I've said at this meeting before, as a recreation department and a community, we are beholden to the school, which is very generous with the space that they have when they have it, of providing recreational opportunities for the town. So at this process, I have access to their scheduling system. I can put in a request for space. They can either approve or deny the space depending on what they have. So the school has first priority on the space, and then they allow youth programs to have priority on the space. And then at the very end, they'll have adult programming priority on the space. On the outdoor space, they have games. We get whatever space is left after they are done. We have to be flexible around any of their game schedules. And then when it's outdoor space, if their games get canceled because of weather, they'll move to another spot. Then that will affect us being able to be pushed down. So a recreational space for that we have that we can plan and use is vitally important for programming. We also, with the space issue, and we have a community need, if I talk about camps or people that went through the registration process for our summer camp, this summer, to kind of demonstrate the need, our camp has 84 slots. We use the middle school, we use the inside, and we also use their outside space, and we transport our campers to Watkins Glen and Taganic Falls State Park. The camp sold out in 27 minutes. So 84 slots were taken in 27 minutes, which was pretty unprecedented. The camp last year sold out within a day. Before that, it was a week. So the need has been getting stronger to have space to be able to provide programming for the youth that are in our community. And then options. So right now we only have one option as far as being able to offer space. In the future, hoping to have more options. We have the Camp Barton that can be potentially used in the future as well. Can house more people in order to have more space for them to be able to have programming. Same thing for the camp. Right now we have 56 campers on a wait list just for one of the weeks, right? We have 53 for another week. The lowest that we have is in the 20s as far as waiting for a week of camp. So there is a need to have space. There's a need to be able to grow programming so that we can use that space, not only just for rec, not only just for youth programming, also for adult programming as well. people want to be able to move outside, we have to be able to only use the structured space that we have for our T-ball baseball programs. Right now, they just use a field space in between the varsity baseball field and the stadium track and football and soccer field that they have there. So we just go and paint lines in the grass to be able to use there. So do we need full-on stands and a giant baseball field for T-ball? No, but it's nice to actually have suitable space where they can be far enough apart so that they're not hitting baseballs or running into each other there, because we're talking about young children that just need space. There's an opportunity to be able to use that land for multiple programming needs that we have. So it doesn't have to just be baseball, just be soccer, and it just will allow us to have more flexibility to be able to offer programming, have a space for our children to go and use, and then also to be able to offer adult rec programming for a place where they can go and use to be able to do their programs. We have adult soccer that goes all summer long. They are using the space, trying to find a space when they have it. They need to go through us to be able to provide insurance, to be able to use the school. This way, it is very simple. They can just use us just to be able to use a space on their own.
Can you clarify one thing?
Sure,
The 84 campers, that's per week,
per week,
not
Yeah.
total.
not total.
It's 84 campers per
Yeah.
week and we sold out
In
84
20.
campers per week for 6 weeks and 27 days.
So it goes mostly grade, so it's students that are entering kindergarten, so some that are pre-K now that are gonna be entering kindergarten in the fall, all the way up to people that are entering 6th grade. We did add a new program this year, which is called an advanced camper programming for 7th and 8th graders, where it's essentially a transition from being a youth camper before they could potentially be a CIT. So we've added, there's 2 weeks, 12 campers for 2 weeks. Their role is to help counselors basically learn more leadership skills where they can facilitate some of the games with the campers. So there'll be, 2 of those campers be with their group of counselors, and they'll basically transition from being, told what to do, being a help guide, but they're still a camper. So we've essentially increased the camp size from 84 to 96, but they're only half day, so that they do not affect our, there's New York State ratios as far as for swimming counselors, when we go into water areas, and then we also have the bus transportation and everything else that we put in there. And we only have so much space in the middle school, so the more we add, the less space there is, but they're there for 4 hours. Part of it's pre-camp, part of it's just the morning programming inside, outside, so.
So is the enrollment in those grades, they went down for quite a while.
Before, so during COVID, they went down. And so when I took over just after COVID, so before there, the camp numbers were, from the reports that I get, they fluctuated. After COVID, we opened up camp at 50, went from 50 to 65, went from 65 to 72, and now we've been at 84 for a couple of years now.
My question is school.
Oh, school enrollment going down.
It had been.
Oh,
Has it flattened out? Is it going up again?
so those numbers, I don't know for the school
I just know what
enrollment.
for my grade,
Yeah.
because my grades are 7th grade is kind of small, but the 5th grade is huge, 4th grade is huge.
Third grade's big.
3rd grade's big,
What is that number?
90.
But what I will say to that for the camp is this was something that was, raised. And it's makes like an excellent point, is it's all Trumansburg Ulysses are at the camp. So we don't have a GIS system that can,
But I guess what I'm
Keep it
getting
out.
at is if you have 84 slots and you have 90 kids in a grade, let's say that's about 540 kids for these 84 slots. So it's about 12-13% of the population uses this
or can,
service because of you can't, you're maxing out in 27 minutes.
yeah,
Right.
basically,
I didn't
yep,
I didn't get my kids in.
I apologize.
That's all right.
Well, and you had
I'll figure
what,
something out.
you said 56 are on a wait list, 54.
Yeah, so I mean, right now, Yeah, so I have, right, for the wait lists for this semester here. Sorry, so we can, so right now for 2025, so let's see, yep, 53, 46, 56, 47, 47. And 12,
That's the wait list.
Yeah.
so for each of the weeks of the camp.
So what is the limiting factor?
Space, so as far as like indoor space. So when the campers come for right now, they have, we have groups that are set up. We use the cafeteria in the main gym in the middle school. So as far as having like the space like in those areas. So we'll have like we use basically the 4 corners for 4 groups upstairs, and then we'll use 3 basic like rows down in the
So if
cafeteria.
if the limiting factor is indoor space, us giving you more 15 acres of non-indoor space, how does that alleviate help the situation?
So we can move part of camp to like another like space. So like right now, we can, like our camp, when we go to Camp Barton, there'll be some indoor space, but also be using outdoor space. The outdoor space to be able to use for summer programming, I can offer additional programming that doesn't need the space. So right now for sports programming, I can offer sports programming that won't compete with a camp program on in that same modified field area here, that what we have. What we also have is for spring program and fall programming, where we battle all the varsity and modified sports. Our programs are pushed later, especially in the fall because of daylight savings. We have to end earlier. So we have, for instance, in the fall cross-country program that has to start earlier at 5:30, and then they have to continue to move their practice earlier in order to be able to use that space. So having an outdoor space in our own, we can start earlier. The earliest that we can start on outdoor programming during the school year, which is the main issue of having 14 acres, is that we can start programming earlier. We won't be held to waiting for practices to end at 5. And then when they have games, we can't use the space at all because they don't end until 7:30. So using that space is going to be is a huge help for during the school year, using that outdoor space, and then also to provide additional programming in the summer where we don't have to have indoor space for it and be able to use the outdoor space for additional programming.
So when I first signed, like when my oldest went to camp, going into kindergarten a long time ago,
Yeah.
like the stands would be huge. This was pre-COVID. So the stands would be filled with kids. But I think the difference was when it rained, camp was canceled.
Mhm.
So we're offering an opportunity to have a consistent program where parents can rely on being at the camp from 9 to 4, whatever it is, without all of a sudden getting that call in the morning, camp is canceled, because then you had to.
It's an open field, it's not gonna be weather resistant.
No, but I don't
So
think
when,
we're really talking about the camp, like utilizing that space.
I think what Liz
There's
is saying,
potential.
well, I think what Liz is saying is that you can pack in more people if you're not committed to making sure everybody has undercover access at the school.
I'm
So-
not talking about the numbers
So no,
with
so
restrictions.
right,
Not
so-
where we are.
prior to the town taking over the program, this is something Will instituted. There were situations where the weather would cancel swim bus. And then parents just had to come pick up their kids. And you don't want the call at 11 o'clock that you need to come pick up your kids, right, from camp. And so Will instituted a number of things. So at the current numbers that we have in the school, everybody can comfortably be in undercover if they can't go swimming that day. Additionally, the other mitigating factor that we've increasingly had to deal with that previously to COVID wasn't as big an issue is HAPS in the lake, shutting down Teganic State Park. So now every Monday, Will, right, you are taking the youth or taking the summer camp to Watkins Glen. Because Watkins Glen has a pool, so you never have to worry about HAPS there. And it all factors in. Could you explain how it factors into the busing? And that's why you do Mondays?
So if our contract, we need to be able to cancel the buses in advance so that they can cancel the drivers. So this doesn't go mostly to the park, but just as far as like the camp structure goes. Because we can't cancel over the weekend because they're not there, and then we would need to cancel it in advance instead of us having to pay for it. We preemptively send our camp to Watkins Glen to use their pool so that we can be guaranteed that they can go swimming instead of like having it being canceled on a 95-degree day because they can't go to Teganic Falls. If Teganic Falls has HABs and they know that they're going to have it for multiple days, because they do a really good job of communicating with our camp. They've developed a relationship as far as like quick phone calls. That camp can be, we can cancel the bus. We can basically, we don't have to cancel the buses. We can just reallocate the buses to be able to go to another location. So we need the extra bus. So it's like we have one bus that takes the younger campers down each time. All right. So the older campers, we have relied on TCAT and an agreement that we have to TCAT where they develop like their own route to go from the school down to Teganic in the fall, in the summer for the 6 weeks that we have camp. So if we cancel, then we have one bus, but we can't take half the camp. So in order to be able to alleviate that issue, what we've done is we've just automatically taken 2 buses on Monday, take them to the pool. If we have to, because of HABs, we have the opportunity, if we had to cancel a bus, or we have the opportunity to be able to add a bus so that we can take it and give them enough notice in order to be able to take them to Watkins Glen.
And just to be, the reason I brought up my statement was more not talking about the potential land donation uses there. But I've seen a lot of comments on Facebook that I was just trying to get out some information to the public of why we now have restrictions and why the numbers went from 150 to 84. It's to be able to provide that consistent all day, every day support that they just, I don't know, I was just assuming there was 150. The stands were filled and I would let my like, little 4-year-old in. But that was before the town ran a program. It just was packed. There were so many kids. And so there's a difference now.
Yeah, so the park, going to the park allows for more flexibility of programming, not just for just the school year, but also for the summer, because we can have programming that cannot be like just at the school for competing for fields in the evening after school. Other programs also use that space, so it just allows for more flexibility for the recreation department to have that space. There are other youth entities that do use that space. There are people that take part in the adult rec community that would enjoy also being able to use extra space for programming so that they're not reliant just on be able to use the school as well. Those are the only facilities that we have at our disposal at this point in time.
Talking outdoor space.
Outdoor space, yeah.
Well, and could you, I think there's, and I think a lot of our programming is youth focused, but could you talk a bit about the numbers of youth and adults who are participating?
Yeah, so each year, when we go through our different like programming, and I can just talk about it just for like on individual case. So for the youth programs, for individuals and not just for registrations, we're about 400 to 420 individual youth use our programs. So as we go, yeah.
For the yeah.
And then for adult programming, it has fluctuated as far as like from beginning to get our adult programming, which we took over from the TCEP program that the school ran for a while. And that has gone from between 265 and 300 individuals that have used the program, that have participated in adult programming each year. So that's, the number fluctuates essentially by, we are capped on how many people can be a part of the program. So the volleyball program, for instance, they cap at 36. They have a wait list of 14 people that are trying just to go and play volleyball on Thursday nights. So that restricts how many people that can participate in the program. We offer 3 nights of volleyball, 2 times of soccer. We have offered 2 times of pickleball, although again, another space issue as far as being, being able to offer that. So we have a limited amount of numbers that we can offer for adult programming, but we offer it in fall and in the spring as far as like 2 sets that people can register for. So we have like a fairly healthy population in Trumansburg and Ulysses that use for adults that use like the rec that we can offer at this point in time. And then having outdoor space or having like however the space ends up being developed on that on those like 14 acres just provides other opportunities for adult program that they can go and use, and they don't have to drive out of town to be able to go and use outdoor space.
Did you look at the Jacksonville Park?
Yes, when I first started, we went over to Jacksonville Park and looked at it. The back part is all wet. So it's like, they have a fence back there where presumably there was a field at one point in time, but the way that the grass is, it's too wet to actually be able to participate in any programming for there. Like we could do, and there has been talk with the youth commission as far as like offering other, non-team based activities for youth and adults where it's like they can go there and they can learn how to fish or fly fish or do like outdoor orienteering and those type of activities there. But we looked at it as far as like for a space for having like fields. It looks great, does not offer like the full value of what we'd be able to utilize in that space. But yeah, that has been a consideration from a couple of years ago.
Should talk to Scott about seeing if they could raise it and or drain it. I mean, is it big enough to accommodate?
I would have to go and revisit that to see if they could do that.
I know there were wetlands issues associated with their last visit to BZA and planning board.
Okay.
When they were putting in parking spaces. So there's very limited parking out there also.
Oh, that's, yeah.
Because of the
in and
wetland,
out.
there's
Yep.
the creek and it's what.
Jacksonville Park is talked about.
I mean, speaking about parking, I know we haven't talked about this in this kind of detail. But how many parking spaces do you think that we would have there?
I think that would be in the development phase to determine what the community wants. I mean. You're hearing this is one aspect of, Will has experience with folks who are trying to get onto wait lists and things like that. Adults and youth, because I know you have programs that sell out also in youth. So that's one aspect, but at this juncture, we need, if the town decides to accept the donation, then the phase needs to be developed of what the community wants. If the community actively wants a walking trail and a wilderness space, then I think it should be a walking trail and a wilderness space. But I think that whatever the ultimate community planning process is should determine how it's developed. And so I don't think we can say how many parking spaces.
So I think it's really important for people to know how that's gonna go. In terms of the public process, community process.
No disagreement. There's something on the agenda tonight I wanted to start talking about as a potential place to start.
Yeah, okay, good.
Other questions for Will? What's your most popular program, just as before you head out the door, what's your most popular youth program?
Spring track. It's
Interesting, I wouldn't have guessed that.
yeah, like it's like it's the most popular like one program. There are some that the numbers rival, but it's, if you took all the basketball clinics and you added them to all the different basketball teams, and then you could just combine all those programs, like those numbers would be slightly higher. But track will be 100 kids, and they'll be at the track from 6 to 7 on Tuesday nights for like 4 straight nights. And there's a gentleman, Andrew Burton, he's been doing it for years. He's done a tremendous job and gets the high school track and field athletes to help. And it goes very smoothly, very popular, sells out. I've had to continue to increase the numbers on that one. And now I just finally put it at 100. that's not what it's gonna get to anyway, so. And I'm probably gonna be at 102, just because I put it there. Yeah, that's popular program.
Thank you.
I will say, just thank you for. Was very encouraged to see the number of girls basketball teams this year.
Yes, I was too. It was,
Clark, huh?
Yes, she's making a.
whatever it is,
impact.
yeah,
Very-
it's, like, and the numbers, like, talking to the point about like, is the school growing or not? The, third and fourth grade, largest participation in youth basketball, like, since I've been here. There was 4 teams.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, yes, two girls teams, 2 boys teams, highest like that we've ever had in like a level. Yeah, so that was pretty nice to see.
That's great.
A lot of volunteers behind you, Will.
Yes, no, the
and
volunteers, that's what makes
you-
the rec program go.
You do a tremendous amount of work. Thank you. You've grown a huge program for us.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you very much. I see you all. Have a good night.
Now it's time for Blakely to come on up. She brings her own, did you bring your own handouts?
I did.
Okay, perfect. I temporarily panicked until I remembered that you said you were bringing them. They were posted also.
I'm also gonna try to share them online for our online viewers.
Excellent.
Let's see how well that goes. I think just, I'm not in that special room, I'm just there.
What?
So how, you'll have to let me share.
So if you logged in on the link that I gave you, you should be able to just share.
I know, but I have to have a login and a password and stuff like that.
Which she doesn't have with us. Okay.
Oh, because your documents are on the server, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying I couldn't just, it just wouldn't take me to the Zoom meeting. I had to have information put in. I'm sorry. That's fine.
That's yours. Okay, sorry.
So you need me to make you a co-host?
Yes,
here?
please.
And then unmake her a co-host before she signs off and shuts down the meeting, right?
If I run, it looks it. Okay, so the first item I've handed out, so this is a review of the 2024 financial results. You should have received the actual financial statements and the annual report filed with the state a while ago, right? Okay. The page you have in front of you now is a review of the fund balances with a comparison to what was in the budget, which is the top half of the sheet, and what the actual results were. So when we budgeted for 2025, we made certain assumptions about what our reserves would be at the end of the year, what our fund balances would be at the end of the year. And that sort of gave us decisions about how much we could afford to appropriate and so forth. So by fund, you'll see that just in a very quick overview, and then I'll have a little more information after, is that our reserve fund balances are actually, we budgeted to be at 1.556 million and we're at 1.582. So we actually have a little more reserves than we had thought we would at the end of the year. And our estimated, if you go towards the right of the page and you're looking at the estimated fund balance at the end of the year, we had estimated almost 1.4 million. And now we're at, but where we ended was closer to 1.75 million.
This is the,
1.57.
Yes, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
1.57 million, yes. So I'm just, are you
Nope, no.
following where I am?
Yep.
Okay, great. Great. And so, in fact, the fund balance that we've appropriated with our 2025 budget that we're planning to use hasn't changed, but what we have available after that has increased. So in total, we have about 47% of unappropriated fund balance available compared to our budget. So as to what we had planned was 41%. So I know we spent a lot of time during the budget process talking about fund balance and what it should be and have it to be reserves. And so we ended up better than we planned, but not dramatically different than what we planned. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
Would you mind, just for the public's benefit and maybe for the board as well, what were some of the biggest, unexpected drivers of this, do you think?
Well, in my summary that's coming,
Okay,
I'll
sorry.
be going over
I'm jumping,
that.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping.
I'll be going
Jumping
over
here,
that.
yeah.
So the other thing that I have, it's hard for me to see here. The other thing that I have to hand out to the board is a fund balance reserve summary. And this is really just for your information. But the reserves that I gave you totals on for on that summary page, this is the detail, front and back of what those reserves are. So and in the general fund, the A fund, you not only have reserves, but you have assigned funds, which are things like a grant that came in that's assigned only for a particular purpose. And so you have to set it aside. You can't spend it for anything else. And so that's why it's sitting here in these assigned funds. So that's really just for your information, to get a sense of where all our reserves are. Almost 1.6 million.
So with respect to this chart,
Yes.
would the idea be to maybe spend down some of those reserves in the budget next year?
Well, that's a good question, Mary, because I think one of the things that our finance committee is going to do is take a look at that. We're going to look at our reserves and see, are they adequately funded? We're going to look at our fund balance and see, do we need to spend some of it down, and how do we do that strategically? Because spending a reserve or spending fund balance, once you spend it, it's gone. It's a one-time thing. So you really have to think about how you use it in a one-time way so that you don't find yourself in trouble later on because you've used it all up and then it's off. So we want to be planful about that. And that's one of the things the finance committee is going to be looking at.
I suppose if the appropriations go up, then the percent of fund balance would
also
decline.
Right, correct. The amount of fund balance we have available to fund those appropriations would go down.
Yes.
Percentage. So we'll be taking a closer look at that. And you also have to think about strategic projects and where there might be important places to set funds aside for things that we know are coming. So. Did I answer your question, sort of?
Yeah.
Get to the summary page. I'm gonna hand this out. And this is the answer to your question. I do have copies for you, Larissa. I am trying to make sure I can share this. Hold on, I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute. I seem to have lost my. So this is a summary of the results of operations for the year. And the first part, so what you'll see by fund is both the revenues totals and expenditure totals, what we budgeted, what actually happened, and then what we projected during budget time. So what we thought would happen when we were approving our budget, and then how different was it from that? And then I have some notes here about what the driving factors were for those changes. So in the A fund, in the general fund townwide, we actually had about 10% more revenue than budgeted, and we spent about 10% less than budgeted. We did know this, though, when we were, a lot of this, when we were putting the budget together for this year. And so our projected spending was actually within, 1.5% of what actually happened. And our projected revenue was about 8%, within 8% of what actually. And the biggest contributors were, we did have excess revenue in investment income and mortgage tax that we weren't fully anticipating at the time that the budget was approved. So those are contributing factors there. And we saved money in town operations, which are things like the building, clerk's office, the supervisor's office, and also in the youth areas, youth recreation and youth development. There was some savings and spending from what we had planned. Part of that is because we had a position that wasn't filled for the whole year that we had budgeted. And I don't know if there's any questions about that, but that's my summary for A. And what I'm going to hand out to you is a much more detailed sheet on these for your reference later, but I'm not going to go through them in detail at the advice of the finance committee.
But Lexi would be happy to sit down with everyone.
But I'm happy to
might
answer
want
any
to.
questions anybody has in detail. Okay, and then in B fund, which is the town outside the village, we actually had revenues in excess of the budget plan of 25%. And that was really due to a one-time large building permit. That's not going to be a repeating item. So that's, again, an example of fund balance we have that's there, but it's not a repeating item. And so to think about how do we strategically use that to support things.
And I talked about in budget season, that reflects 6 years of work on the town's part.
Right.
Of shepherding through that,
Right.
that project.
And our spending was about 11% less than the original budget. However, when we did our projections, we knew we were getting that big building permit and we knew we were going to spend less. And so the projected numbers are much closer to what we actually happened. What I will say is that the comp plan committee activity was a little more than what I had. They got further along than what I had anticipated when we approved the budget. So it's a little more revenue and a little more spending happening, but that's just timing. The overall project cost hasn't changed and the overall project revenue hasn't changed. The other savings in B fund were planned budgets for contingencies, legal engineering that we did not use to the extent that we had budgeted for. In fact, we used much more minimally. So, questions about that? In the highway fund DA, townwide, there were some big differences compared to the original budget because we traded in a piece of equipment and in the budget plan, it had been budgeted as revenue and expense in total. But generally with trade-ins, we just show the net cost and that's how it actually got reported on the books. And so the net effect was nominal, right? But we had less spending and less revenue as a result. The other thing that's factor here is that, and I don't know, maybe Scott reported on this at one of our previous board meetings, but we aren't using all our highway aid money, or we haven't, because it's being carried over for potential future use.
Oh,
So,
we did say that, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry.
And so we always budget for the full amount of highway aid, but sometimes we don't use it, but we don't lose it.
Yeah.
So when we're planning for 2026, we'll be looking at that and deciding what's the best way to use those funds. So,
Does it effectively serve as like a savings account at the state essentially?
yes and no, I wouldn't call it that, because I would be too nervous about carrying money over for too long, honestly. But I've never seen it go away. You know, I mean, I've only been working in the town arena now since 2019, but so I don't have a long history with it, but I would be a little nervous about leaving it for too long. You really do want to plan to use it, or somebody will decide that maybe you don't need it. So, sorry, I would be so skeptical, but
No, I appreciate that.
so that's the biggest difference there in that fund. And then, I'm
Wonder how like those reserves you're talking about reflect in this sheet?
some of those reserve, well, the CHIPS money is not, because that's at the state. It's money that they're holding that we haven't claimed yet. But we also have some significant reserves there for capital, improvements and stuff like that.
Right there.
Yes, in the reserves. That's in addition to the state aid monies, which we don't physically have until we spend it.
Reimbursement.
Yes. I'll move this up here. So. For the highway, outside the village, there, see, I have this on both of those. I'm sorry, I've, got myself confused, because the CHIPS money is actually in that, in the DB fund, I'm sorry. But the same thing applies here. Where our budget was planned to be a certain level and we didn't spend at that level or earn at that level. Because we have less
Talking DB
activity.
now?
What's that?
DB, yeah.
DB, I'm sorry, yes. The other thing with DB is that I noticed that the contractual spending for snow removal was less than the budget plan. And, I can't tell you, I know all the details as to why, other than we spent less money on salt and sand in 2024, but I'm guessing we probably made up on it in 2025.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but we did spend all of our personnel funds, so. So the actual, results compared to the, projected amount and the budget plan were pretty close. In terms of the results in that fund, so. The last thing I was going to, well, not the last thing, but one of the last things is the Water District 3. We were about 2% under the revenue budget, actually. And there were some issues that were identified with water billing that we have now rectified, where we found some meters had to be replaced. I'm looking at Carissa. And so I think our billings were slightly under what they probably should have been. But we have rectified that. It was pretty close. And then our spending had about 10% in savings compared to budget. Our projections were much closer. But the savings were in areas like legal, contingency, engineering, things that we set aside in anticipation of a problem that didn't happen, basically. The last thing I reported on was the ambulance billing. In our fire and ambulance districts. Those budgets are very large, but they're just one fixed contractual item that we pay the village. So there's no differences there. The only difference is how much money we take in for the billing for the services for the ambulance services. And we've talked about this before during budget time. We had, our revenue has been going down. What I projected was about what we got, but it was about 6% less than budget. So we're hoping that that will improve in the coming year, but I don't really have a lot of data yet. So.
Do they have the new billing system?
Yes, effective January 1st, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'll
We got
be
in the report too.
taking a look at that.
We started to get, but it's,
I only got one payment so far.
Right.
So I have to look at it. I don't have a lot of data yet to do any comparisons, so.
and the thing that's strange, right, about ambulance billing is that it's not always really clear when it's being collected from, right? In terms of we know we're getting it from a certain period, but we don't necessarily know when the call happens.
So, that's pretty much what I have for my quick overview. I did want to hand out, this is the detail which you can look at your leisure.
It's also it's also posted online.
It is posted online, yeah.
All of this is.
And. What is that, Shannon? And I'm happy to answer any questions about the year-end results, or if there's information that you wanted that I didn't share with you. Please tell me, and I'll be happy to get it, or if there's a question I can answer. I know this is probably a little different than what you've seen in the past, just
great.
the way my brain works. But if
Alex.
it's not answering all your questions, let me know.
Overall, do you have a 50,000-foot assessment of?
I think the 50,000-foot assessment is that we're doing a much better job of more closely anticipating revenues and expenses. We're still being a little conservative, which is appropriate, I think. We're spending a little less than what we planned and earning a little more, but not in a dramatic way, not in a way that is going to artificially raise our fund balance or change or affect our tax revenue or other things. At the same time, you don't want to overestimate revenue or underestimate expenses. You'll end up in the reverse problem. So I feel like we're getting pretty close. I'm saying, 10% was probably the biggest variance in any of the funds from what we projected once we started the year. And I don't think that's bad at all. So I think the most important thing is how we plan going forward to meet our fund balance policy and be prudent with our reserves. Because it's really a combination of both. And maybe to meet our fund balance policy, part of it is to actually increase some of our reserves where maybe they're not funded. So those are things we can look at.
That was gonna be one of my questions. We've experienced like households across our Ulysses in the country are experiencing huge inflation challenges. Cost of equipment's gone up considerably, our budget, our reserve targets, some of them probably were created before we experienced were increases in inflation and supply chain issues. So, tariffs,
For
potentially.
example, as we look at our coming year's budget and our capital equipment replacement plan just for the highway department. That's gonna change dramatically with the cost of equipment. Compared to what we may have planned in the past and what our reserves are. So, those are all things we're gonna have to look at and make sure that the idea is that we don't have to have significant changes in the tax rates and the tax levy so that it smooths it out. And that's what we're using reserves for and doing the long-term fund balance planning. Those, I think, are mine.
So the finance committee is gonna discuss what to do.
Do you want me to talk about that?
Might not be a bad idea.
Okay,
Do you want me to set you up for that?
yes, please, ask me the question you want me to
Okay,
answer.
so I understand there have been some questions, I think, in terms of fair questions from the public, questions from the board about the cost for community parks and the impact of community parks.
Mhm.
And I'm preaching to the choir that's the board right now, but Blixie she's the heaviest hitter at the table right now. She's the former CFO of Tompkins Cortland Community College. She has served on every board that you could want somebody of her caliber at, and she also happens to be the budget officer and bookkeeper for 3 municipalities, including Newfield and Enfield. So I am personally grateful you are here, but I know that there has been concerns, and I think that you're in a position that's unique to be able to talk to us about another community in Tompkins County that receive the ability to get land and develop it as a community park would, and I just wondered if you wouldn't mind speaking to how they financially have accomplished that.
Sure. So that's Newfield, which is where I live. And long before I became the bookkeeper there, the town purchased land when they had the opportunity to do so and didn't do anything with it for probably a decade. And then a community group got together, parents who were very involved with the recreation programming in the town, and did a lot of fundraising and also helped apply for a grant, a capital grant through the state. And we developed the park into a recreation park with those funds. So it was all grants and fundraised money, basically. And right now, it's just a very simple rec park, which has a basketball court, a soccer field, and a baseball field. Right now, the town is looking at wanting to put in more permanent restroom facilities, but it's been operating without them, you know, with portable restrooms in season since after COVID, basically, because the park was ready to open and then COVID happened. So we weren't able to do that at that time. But since then, it's busy all weather, you know, in the appropriate weather, it's busy all the time. The recreation programs use it heavily. I haven't heard any concerns from any of the folks in the area about the park. I mean, I'm listening to what folks are saying here. That doesn't seem to be a concern in Newfield, to the best of my knowledge. But, you know, we do look at parking and we look at usage, and we're actually looking at making improvements to it. But the only way to do that is to apply for grant money. So we're looking at applying for parks grant money so that we can add permanent restrooms and maybe a pavilion. Because right now it's just the ball fields and the basketball court. We got grants to put up fencing. We got grants to put up Wi-Fi and cameras. You know, so pretty much all the improvements we made to the park have been through grant funding. There is a small amount of tax dollar support that goes to maintenance of it. So our highway department staff, or you could say it's a DPW really, do dedicate some time to make sure it's mowed and taken care of. But it's pretty nominal. So
What's pretty nominal?
the cost.
I mean, no,
Yeah.
but what would you consider nominal?
Less than $5,000 a year for everything we do at the park, all the operating costs, and usually quite a bit less. So, I mean, and that includes buying new bases or nets for soccer, whatever it is that needs to be there, you know, paint, you know, whatever they need to keep the games going. I am not a recreation person, so I'm not good at explaining that stuff, but I pay the bill. So yeah, and so it's worked out really well for the town, and it's very well used. And we host a lot of games that way that we wouldn't be able to do if we were just relying on the school. And obviously we use the school in Newfield just like you do here in Trumansburg, for using their indoor facilities and their outdoor facilities and running our camp and all of that. So, does that answer your question?
Sure does.
Okay.
Any other questions for Blixie on this or any other topic related to finance? Okay, well, thank you so much for guiding us through
Yeah.
another season in our over 230
Well,
years.
soon budget season's gonna start again. I know it's only March, but I'm already thinking about it.
Yeah.
And we want to stay here for the resolution on the.
I can stay here.
Would you
if
mind?
to.
We, I don't think, do you want to we can swap around night class for the next item.
Yeah, why don't we
That's
do
okay.
that?
Okay, so the night class resolution is in the corporation agreement. So it's actually, right. Did I get the wrong one? No, sorry, it is.
So that's the
Is it page 27?
It's in the registration packet. It's not.
Oh,
Do you want me to? bring it up?
I can bring it up also.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, we printed out the wrong one. There were two very large documents. So at the last town board meeting, Blixie presented on NICLAS. Would you mind just giving us a quick
Sure.
overview for anybody in the public who?
So, NICLAS or N1, New York class is a consortium of New York State municipalities that combine their funds for investment in, eligible securities, and they're all AAA rated, as I've learned now. For maximizing earnings for all the municipalities while complying with the state regulations. And it's fairly liquid because there's such a large amount of participation in money there. That it's easy to take money in and out. And so it doesn't require, right now, we're investing in treasuries with specific maturity dates, and you kind of have to plan for how much money you invest and how long it's gonna be tied up. And with this, you wouldn't really have to do that. You could just invest what you have, maximize the income, and get it out when you need it to pay bills, basically. So, but we need board approval.
I have the resolution, yeah. And it
In
was in
order
the
to get
packet.
started. And I think the plan that we talked about at the finance committee was to get it started, get it set up, and then take the funds we have right now from our tax revenue that we don't need and except throughout the year, and get it invested right away. And then we can look at our current investments and moving them over at the time that makes most sense.
Any questions about that? Pretty, I thought, robust conversation at the last meeting. Want to make sure people have their questions asked and answered.
So we can just. Or we could pull the money out for anything from.
Right. I think it's only a day or so
It's very
to get it. It's very liquid.
It's very,
So if it's more liquid than the trust company, then we could presumably make more money on our
Correct.
investments.
Correct.
well, not because of the liquidity, but because companies, the trust company is charging us a fee. It's like 40 basis points. This isn't charging us anything. This is.
Right,
It's a not-for-profit. so
right.
We gotta make some money.
They're gonna make a little money just to cover
We
their
gotta pay the
expenses.
bills.
Yeah.
They're not beholden to shareholders
Right.
Right.
to maximize their money.
I think what you were implying though, Mary, is that I could probably have more.
Even more
more
invested.
easily, because I don't have to worry
Well, yeah,
about
well, I
how
think-
quickly I can get it
I
out.
mean, I think we should have it all invested there.
Yes.
Well,
I
we could
will
leave
keep some money
$10
saved.
maybe in the
You
checking.
gotta keep the balance open.
But since it's so liquid. it Doesn't make sense not to, at the current interest rate.
Right.
And if rates come down a huge amount again, this becomes less valuable.
Right.
But right now, it's very.
How many signers do you have each time you move the money?
I think what would happen is that I would have authority to move money up to a certain amount to transfer money just between our accounts. So
Our investment policy, right?
Right, and I mean, right now, I can move money from our savings checking up to a certain amount.
But it's in the
Without,
same bank.
it's all in the same bank,
Right.
right? So we would have to set this up where whoever's the authorized signer, which would be our current authorized signers, I'm assuming would be Caitlin, Krista, Mary, are our current authorized signers. You would set it up so that I had the authority to do up to a certain amount. Or maybe there'd have to be a counter authority by one of the authorized signers. I mean, until we sit with NICLAS, I'm not sure exactly how it all will get set up. But that would be, it's not like I'm gonna be moving money around constantly. It would probably be once a month at the most, I would say.
Because we only pay bills once a month.
Right, I mean, that's when we pay them. Months. So we've been doing it in anticipation of each abstract.
Any other questions?
Can we set it up so that the only place the money could go is back into our
Yeah.
checking account.
Yeah, it would be set up so that the only place they could put the money is back into our savings, our consolidated
Right.
savings. So the money couldn't go anywhere else.
Right,
So, there's gotta be safeguards there.
right.
So you take all of our income, put it in there and just draw it down through the year, essentially is what you're saying.
Yeah,
Pretty much, yeah,
Like we make money once a year.
yeah,
right. Well, we make money every day.
right.
No, our income
Well,
is
the
all-
most of it is tax revenue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, so basically
Right.
you put the money in there and then you draw it down as you need it, pay bills every month. Yeah. And our reserves would sit
reserves.
there until we needed them. Like, for example, we have this Recovery Act money. It's sitting in investments right now. But when we need it, I would just take it out when it comes time to pay bills for the apartment. So.
Great. Any other questions? I have the resolution in front of me. I can read it. It's not very long. And for anybody keeping track at home, it is on page 3 of the registration document. Whereas the New York General Municipal Law, Article 5G, Section 119-0, empowers municipal corporations, including school districts, boards, cooperative educational services, counties, cities, towns, and villages and districts to enter into, amend, cancel, and terminate agreements for the performance among themselves or one or the other of their respective functions, powers, and duties on a cooperative or contract basis. Whereas the town of Ulysses wishes to invest portions of its available investment funds in cooperation with other corporations and or districts pursuant to the NICLAS Municipal Cooperation Agreement amended and restated as of August 1st, 2023. Whereas the town of Ulysses wishes to satisfy the safety and liquidity needs of their funds. Now therefore be it resolved as follows. That Caitlin Olson, Town Supervisor of the Town of Ulysses, is hereby authorized to participate in the NICLAS program under the terms of the NICLAS Municipal Corporation Agreement, amended and restated as of August 1st, 2023. Need to, remove that. Need a second?
Second.
Any further
But this
comment or
only
discussion?
authorizes you to do
Is that a problem?
this. Or-
I
You
don't-
can't
To
find-
sign the agreement?
Yeah,
Sign the agreement.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not assigning of moving funds.
Right,
Money
once
around.
we sign the agreement, then there's all kinds of paperwork.
Read
we
the
have to
sentence
do.
again, the main sentence you.
That hereby resolved that Caitlin Olson, Town Supervisor of the Town of Ulysses, is hereby authorized to participate in the NICLAS program under the terms of the NICLAS Municipal Corporation Agreement.
To participate in the program.
Right, we have to join the cooperative.
Right, right, okay.
And so this gives her authority to sign that agreement
Yeah.
Right.
to participate in the cooperative.
And this isn't unlike the health consortium.
So they set their fees, so they can just have a annual meeting where they set their fees,
Probably, yeah, I'm sure they do.
right?
Yeah. But I mean, we're already in a thing like this. you know?
Yeah.
Well, this is an investment pool, which is
I-
very different.
It just structures. Probably the opposite. We're making money rather than spending. money. But the principle is similar, the municipals
Yeah,
get together to save
Right.
money.
Well, our workers' comp insurance is the same way.
Right.
We are part of Comp Alliance.
Right.
It's a municipal consortium for workers' comp insurance.
Right,
Right. So,
Yeah.
and we can get better rates that way.
right.
Yeah.
Yep,
So basically, that's giving Caitlin the authority to enter the agreement. And then we have to work on the paperwork for who has permission to do
Right.
what and to get all that set up in terms of the actual banking part.
right. We can start.
And we will
yeah,
have to comply with our investment policies. So that's where we'll begin.
And if we need to come back for further authorizations, we can do.
We can do that.
It's not flipping a switch. We don't go from one to another.
Right.
It's now setting this process up.
But we should be able to invest that money shortly, but that's sitting.
I would assume, yes.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Is there any further comment or discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. would you mind sticking around for the Tatum Engineering one really quickly? We could do that. Is everybody okay with hopping to,
If I log out, if I close out of Zoom, it's not gonna mess you up. is it?
if you are still a co-host, it sure as heck will.
Okay,
So you need to stop being a co-host.
okay, I'm now not a co-host. Thank
There you go. Somebody's done that herself. Okay, so we have a, it's a bit of a longer story, is that, we, back in, when we were putting the budget together, we put aside $5,000 with the anticipation of needing to hire an engineer to provide guidance to the town related to energy use and long-term planning related to how to structure our use of solar generation for town hall, because our estimation of that was that based on the contract that we had signed with Solar Liberty for the solar panels, it was our estimation that the solar panel lease would be terminating at the end of this calendar year. So in the budget for 2025, we set aside $5,000 to have an engineer help guide us with that. Because the installation of those solar panels took a while for whatever reason, we are actually required to pay lease payments on them, both at the town barn and the town hall facility through about July 2027, not the end of 2025. So mixed into this is we through a lot of work that Roxanne and the CSAC did, we received an allocation of $100,000 for a solar project. The application was for solar panels. I'm sorry, not solar panels, for a solar array to be installed at the highway barn. In getting ready to go into contract on that, we were doing our due diligence, and in a conversation with NYSEG, discovered that because there are already solar panels at both facilities, it's not quite so simple to net meter a new solar array to help offset costs. So what we know is that the highway barn currently, it's at about the amount of solar being produced at the highway barn is roughly equal to the amount of energy being used. That's not the case over at town hall. We use considerably more energy at town hall than we produce with our solar array or with our solar panels, but we do not have the capacity to add more solar panels here. We are maxed out at the town hall. So the idea behind having a solar array at the highway barn and this concept of remote net metering means that it allows you, in theory, to do energy production at one location and actually pass on the credits to a different location that you also own. However, what we learned with NYSEG is that if you already have a solar generation that you're receiving credit for, you can't get both. Okay, so because we already have solar panels at this facility, we can't earn credits on a solar array at a different facility through net metering at this juncture. What we also learned from NYSEG was that if we could get a solar array behind the same energy meter at the highway barn that the current solar panels at the highway barn are on, then we could at least earn credits for the solar array. Right now, if we put up a solar array and change nothing, we would produce energy, but we wouldn't get any credit for it. So this has now exceeded the capacity of and knowledge of every person connected to the town currently. And so what I'm coming to you tonight with is a proposal for engineering services. It's from Tatum Engineering, and the outline of what they would include. This was put together in consultation with collecting ideas from the folks at Cornell Cooperative that are part of the clean energy community. Roxanne was on those calls. Terry Carroll, who he's reviewed this proposal and thought it was good. He's on CSAC, but he's also with the county on dealing, I forget his exact title, but with energy, and he handles a lot of the solar panel projects for the county, so he's very well versed in it. What this would do is it would allow us to hire an expert on a very quick turnaround to make some determinations about if there's a pathway forward to being able to connect a new solar array, which is the likely proposal that we could use the NYSERDA funding for, to the existing solar panels on the highway barn in a way that allow us to receive credit.
Well, if we took away the current solar array here. And could we then get the credit? We don't have an operational solar array here.
And that might be what they suggest is unplugging it. We're under contract that we're gonna pay for the solar panels
At
every
least
month.
if we unplug it, we can get credits. We can still pay for it.
Potentially,
Maybe.
in theory, and again, though, like, that's really what we're bringing this person on to say, like, is there a pathway forward that we can do this? Because, I mean, we don't want to put up a solar array that we don't get any credit for,
Right.
like. But,
So another question, wasn't Tatum the engineer that did all this?
they did the original design, is my understanding.
Because I mean, it really didn't go that well, did it?
I wasn't here for any of that, so.
I wasn't.
It was just,
Can you speak?
I think we had a bunch of trouble with the installation of all these heat pumps here. I think there was a time where it wasn't going well.
Was
I-
that Tatum that,
Tatum doesn't install, Tatum does the study.
They did
Right.
the design.
And then there was if I can just explain, because I do know. And then an RFP was put out to do the project,
Right,
and the town, was only one bidder. And the town chose not to go back out, but to instead just accept that bidder. And they did the installation, so Tatum didn't
Tatum
really have
did the
anything to do
design.
with the
So
installation.
you're good with Tatum.
Pardon?
You're
Tatum's-
good with Tatum.
Good.
In your experience.
Yeah, they also did the design for the heat pump installation for the Ulysses Library too. They've done a lot of work around here, so.
All right, okay.
Tatum was recommended by
Yeah,
Terry.
I think they're
Not
not
the
very
county.
knowledgeable. I don't think the problems that I do have with this. I think it has to do with the actual equipment that was used, and they specified just a type, but, could be arranged within that, and that's
Okay.
what the installer that we hired chose.
It's $100,000 we're gonna use. Is there a time limit for us to use that by?
no,
Not, well, they really want a proposal, as Caitlin knows. I think they must be under a bit more pressure than they were before. Once we're contracted, I think we have 2 years to do it. So, but we are under a bit pressure from NYSERDA to come up with something. So there is a time frame.
So that's why the deliverables on this proposal, the due date would be, delivery by April 25th. So that we have a path forward. So that the board understands, we put it out, to, by our procurement policy, we have to, we're supposed to get 3 bids. We put it out to more than 3 consulting firms, engineering firms. This is the only bid we received. I spoke to Nate about it. He said the effort to try and get 3 fulfills our procurement. So we don't have to wait until we get 3. But Teresa was knocking on all the proverbial doors to try and get quotes. And that was done. The list of recommended engineering firms was all done by the group, and mostly by Terry Carroll.
Does that cost come out of the
No.
100,000?
No. So we have budgeted $5,000. This is for 6,300. We have budgeted in town hall contractual, the 5,000, and then we have money in our contingency for the A fund to cover the balance.
The 5,000 or 6,200?
It's 6,300. We budgeted 5,000. The proposal is 6,300.
You've looked at it, Roxanne?
No.
We haven't seen it?
Would have liked to. Thanks for asking. I mean, I generally, we worked with Krista when this design was done, and she was very good too. So I mean, I think that's a really good job, and I think we need to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's quickly.
Yeah, Right, yeah, I said items about it,
Oh, yes.
but I just see the actual proposal, but I think the town should do it, because I think we need an answer. Yeah.
All right,
We need
let's,
to.
let's vote.
direction.
So, I would, make a motion, that, the town board authorizes me to sign, the proposal for, the Tatum engineering proposal for, energy engineering services for town hall. I'm sorry, for town board.
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye, opposed? Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we're different then. Okay, so,
Parking lot.
yeah, back to parking lot. Okay, we talked at the last town board meeting, about programming for the parking lot. It looks like we will be doing, the pre-construction meeting, I think is scheduled for the 11th of April. A Friday, the intention of the contractor is to start the project most likely in late April. It is based largely on when the asphalt, manufacturers in this area open up for production, and usually it's mid-April that they do that. So, we'll do a pre-construction meeting. April 11th, I think is the date we finalized, and then we should be able to, go forward with the reconstruction of the existing parking lot. And when we do that, Lixie took my resolutions. Oh, no, I'm sitting on them over here. Thank you. I took notes on mine, sorry. So what we talked about at the last, town board meeting, I presented what the highway superintendent, had put together. And so the resolution before you tonight, would establish 12-hour parking maximums at, all town hall parking spaces. We would have 2 designated handicap accessible spaces, 2 EV charging spaces for public use, 1 parking space for the town-owned vehicle, 3 public spaces with 2-hour limits during the, and 7 staff parking spaces with 8 to 5 PM restrictions. And so the 2-hour parking limits would be during 8 to 5, so that members of the public who are getting services in the town have a place to park to come in, get their dog license or whatever. And then this resolution also designates, the highway superintendent / director of public works, as responsible for managing and enforcing parking restrictions.
How does he do that? What does that look like?
Well, if we can't fine unless we pass a local law, I'm not suggesting fining. They already actually do that. The highway superintendent already does that in other parts of the town if there's parking in, the no parking areas and things like that.
But what does he do? Somebody,
Leave a note?
So we've left notes. He's talked to people directly, and I mean, worst comes to worst, and we have an egregious problem on our hands, it's trespassing. So you can have somebody towed. We would not, I'm not proposing passing any local law at this juncture to fine people. You can't fine though. Scott would not have the ability to fine anybody. I think we would really want to lead with information and signage, right? So this is not managing the parking lot in this way is not conceptually different from how the village parking lot is managed across the way. They have 12-hour parking limits posted and things like that. And designated spots for staff. So we have we'll end up with a smaller parking lot overall, in part because we're only going to repave on the town-owned section as opposed to the paving that currently exists, which we have an encroachment agreement with the property owner, and that encroachment agreement states that we need to, when we redo our parking lot, we have to pull up all of our parking, all of the lot, because the asphalt belongs to the town, but whenever it got paved by the town previously, it went onto private property. So we need to pull all that up per the encroachment agreement that the town authorized and signed in 2021.
Was the neighbor gonna be parking back there?
So the neighbor has the option to pave the neighbor's section of it. But if this parking plan goes into place, I mean, there'll still be public parking available with 12-hour limits. So.
That doesn't seem right about that.
What
about,
Well, the people who aren't paying for the repaving can actually park on the repave with what we repave.
Maybe we could have town parking only or something, signs.
Well, I mean, that's the idea, and part of it, it's the idea of carving out space that's dedicated for staff, making sure we have a dedicated parking space for the town vehicle. And then parking limitations, so I don't know if the town board, the suggestion from 8 to 5 was really, that's when the majority of town business is happening. Do you really care if somebody's parking there at 10 o'clock at night and leaving at 4 o'clock in the morning? I don't know. I mean, that level of regulation, I don't know if we need to. I mean, the thing about this is only being done by resolution, it's not being done by law, so if it's working, we can keep it, if we need to tweak it. But, you know, the reality is, we have more folks that need to park back there than I think we did 10 years ago. And, you know, now we will have some very clearly marked handicap accessible spaces. We have EV spaces, right? We want to make sure that those are clearly marked. So this is Scott's recommendation for the most efficient, and then we can change it if it doesn't work. So I will go ahead and move that resolution. Is there a second? Any further discussion or comment on this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next item of new business is, sorry, I got them out of order. The next item of new business on the agenda is a letter of support for the Village of Trumansburg. They are applying for a congressional funding allocation for their water system. And I was just looking for the town board to authorize me to submit a letter of support for their, who knows if there's gonna be money in the federal budget for anybody, but you know.
It'll be,
Exactly. So are you moving that?
yeah.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm abstaining.
I'm sorry?
I'm abstaining. When they have these, it would be nice if they submitted a letter to us, at least this is what it is. So I have no idea what I'm voting for. That's the one. So I'm not gonna vote no, but I'll abstain.
Okay. So I'm sorry, did I call for a vote at that point?
You did.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Want to make sure I was not, was it Town of Seneca Falls, who forgot to have a vote? Don't want to be the Town of Seneca Falls. Okay, Design Connect. So, this is a request for a gatekeeper resolution for Design Connect. Is anybody here already familiar with Design Connect? Before I go
Yeah,
down?
I've-
You know,
So Design Connect is a student-led organization at Cornell that was founded in 2008. And it was started by some master's students in the landscape architecture program. And they've been functioning ever since then. They've done quite a number of projects in our area. And they've done Dryden's Rails to Trails conversion project was one they did. They did Hammondsport Rails, rail trail design. More closer to home, they did work for the Jacksonville Park to help them look at how to program their space, and that became part of the process for how they ultimately looked at increasing accessibility with their parking at the Jacksonville Park. So since the last town board meeting, they put out a request for proposals for basically to apply to them for community planning and design. So that's one of the things that they do is they do a community engagement process. And I know that there has been a lot of conversation, we even brought it up tonight, right? About how do we start a conversation? There's been a question about, can we embed it into our existing contract with the comprehensive plan? And the short answer is on that is not really, without going to reopening up that contract and adding in addendums. And that doesn't seem, and by the time we get to the fall and beyond, we're going to be getting drafts of the comprehensive plan. So I don't think the timeline works to embed it for a potential project. The application, what I'm proposing tonight is that, and it's, if you get selected, they do a lot of community engagement. They work with the municipality to come up with a proposal. I really see this as potentially a first draft of both community engagement and a community planning and design process. And the cost to participate is $600, and you only pay the $600 if you're selected. Now, I also don't want to put the cart, it's really threading the needle, right? Because I definitely hear desire from the community to go through a planning process, but it's also how much planning process do you do before you actually know if you have a project, right? Because the town board hasn't gone through the environmental review process or anything like that. And so I want to be mindful of, how to stagger that. So what I'm proposing tonight is that the town applies, and that we do it basically for 2 projects and then only do one of them, right? So we could, if the town board accepts the donation, it goes through that process, and that's a possibility, because this is for the 2025-2026 school year. We're not going to know the outcome, right, of a potential park donation for a while, but we could apply for it and we do know by the time the work would start whether or not we could do it or not. But we have a backup, because I don't want to waste their time also, and I don't want to waste the town's time. And the backup could be that if the town board decides not to accept the park donation, then we could pivot around and do a park planning process for Salo Habitat. Because I think, first off, there are a lot of people in the community who may not even know where Salo Habitat is or be familiar with it. The town purchased that probably about a decade ago, Marissa? 2018. And it was purchased without a plan. It was purchased without looking at a lot of the different components. And so, it was an idea at that point to acquire first and plan later. And this could potentially be used, I think, as a very effective way to engage students, if the town doesn't end up going through a park donation process. So I think we have 2 really viable projects, and I'd be really upfront with Cornell that, right?
If not A, then
Yes,
B.
exactly.
Did you consider Three Falls?
No, and the reason that's a much larger project, and we're gonna be hiring professional planners right out of the gate for that one. So we have an RFP in development right now, so that's what I'm bringing you tonight. We only end up paying it if we get selected. I have no idea what our chances are of being selected. So
How
what
many
is
of
the
these do
selection
they
date?
do?
What?
How many of these do they do a year?
It depends on, I don't know how many they're gonna fund for next year, or they're gonna do for next year. It also, because it's also based on interest, right? Of how many youth in their program, students in their program. And it largely is master's students who are working in planning, architecture, landscape architecture, design fields as well, who participate in these, and it fluctuates how much they can, their capacity.
I'll move.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Okay, then I will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
You. Okay, we did Tatum Engineering, upcoming events. Oh, I actually did have something else, that if the board is amenable to considering, but that I wanted to bring up, which was, and it's kind of connected to that, sort of connected to Design Connect, but related to the potential park donation, is I was wondering, if the town board would be amenable to, scheduling a public hearing. To hear directly from the public, provide a dedicated space for the public. And I was gonna suggest doing it at the April 8th regular town board meeting. At that juncture, I would anticipate that we'll have received feedback from the interested agencies on our draft FEAF environmental form. And we've already heard back from the county. They had no problem with us being lead agency. They have no comments, which means they are not making any suggestions for changes to our form. The Board of Zoning Appeals also met last Wednesday. They also voted in favor, you know, being fine with the town board being lead agency, as well as they did not have any comments at this juncture either for the FEAF. We're now just simply waiting for planning board to provide any comments if they're going to provide them. I'm sorry?
April 1st.
Yeah, and my understanding is they'll be discussing it, continuing their discussion of that on their April 1st meeting here at 7 p.m. So. But I was thinking that April 8th might, you know, we would of course advertise it. But if folks are amenable to that, do that. Okay, so I will, Chris, I'm gonna do this one a little bit on the fly. So I would say, whereas the town of Ulysses is interested in hearing feedback on a potential park donation from the public. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Ulysses schedules a public hearing for the purposes of hearing such feedback on the proposed park donation on April 8th, 2025 at 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that the Ulysses Town Board directs the town clerk to advertise said public hearing. Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. And then we had minutes from.
Before we move on to upcoming events.
Oh,
can I
sure.
Just remind the town board that next Wednesday, we have a comp plan steering committee and meeting, and we were talking about having the second visioning statement based off of the open house results and findings and discussions we had last week. So are you guys all still good with meeting at 5 next Wednesday?
I can't. Oh, wait,
Second,
is it Cornell break?
don't know.
Okay, yeah, I think I can. 5 o'clock? I think I can.
Chris, are you available?
I believe so. Yeah, and Zoom. You can call on Zoom and
So we'll need to schedule it as a town board meeting. Special town board.
Already on the calendar, isn't
Hmm?
it? Is it already on the calendar?
Yeah, we just need to do the necessary advertising. I actually don't know if it's on the calendar. We have talked about it.
Did you put it on the calendar, Chris? Let us know.
No,
No?
it's a comp plan meeting probably is, but the town board meeting's not super now.
all right, 4:30 to 5:30, sorry. Thank you.
It's at 4:30?
4:30 to 5:30 here. Our comp plan steering committee meeting starts at 5:30. You want to stick around? Sorry, that's all.
No, I appreciate that. Sorry. My other half was asking me what time I was gonna be at home, so. Middle of the meeting, honey. Okay, so minutes, we had minutes, from March 11th. That were posted. Anybody have any corrections or alterations needed to them? Okay. So I would move that we approve the minutes as presented from March 11th, 2025. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. I was gonna have a board notification about Tatum Engineering, but it crossed my $6,000 allowed notification limit, and so there are no notifications. Which brings us back to privilege of the floor. Let me get my little clock thing going on. Okay, got my timer. We'll go back and forth, first in person and then online. Is there anybody, and if you spoke with us already, you can have another 3 minutes. So is there anybody in person who wishes to address the town board? Please go ahead.
Okay, I just would like to say, overall, I don't think it's really debatable whether or not recreational program is beneficial and great, because we all know it is. But the discounts for the people who are on the backside of the property, it's a real issue. And I think we should be highly considered. It's really important to us in our lives, in our lifestyle. And I just don't think how one thing would be such a benefit. Oh, it's okay if this happens to you because we love this. Just not fair. That's not right. I'm asking you to protect us too.
Thank you for your comments. Is there anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, you have another turn. Is there anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board? I saw some, yep, Rexia.
This is a good. The CSAC at our last meeting, Marissa Nolan, who was CCE, so, who led the Citizen Careers, program last year, is trying to see if the town and village would be interested in doing it again this year. And so there's been some conversation on email with she and Caitlin and I brought it to Caitlin at the last CSAC meeting. We passed a resolution to encourage it, the town to do it. And so, there can be remote programs that would happen, trainings, April 15, 22, and 29. And so we could set those up like at a library, maybe at the Melbourne or the library one overlaps this town board meeting in the town hall. But she would need a decision on go or no go, by April, at the April 8th meeting. And so Caitlin had suggested communication by email, her sending you information and the board looking at it, and asking her individual questions, not like the board meeting online, but to get all the information, and she can come and answer more questions. She was already feeling like that's might be a little late for advertising, but it wasn't possible to do it tonight at this meeting. This was too many. So just, and I'm happy to help facilitate getting information if you need it or you're not hearing from anybody. Work for Salem Habitat that ran us through with that cooperative extension go through, and other, she has a little report on it, and so I think it's a good thing for me to go and just let you know.
Great.
That's coming your way, then please consider.
Just so the board knows, so the public knows, we did last year, we participated in the Citizens Careers Program. The town and the village each paid half. And the town has allocated to pay for half this year. We have not been able to get confirmation yet. We're hoping, Mary, you might be able to, as village liaison, might be able to twist some thumbs. See if the village will kick over.
Soon, because I need an answer.
Yeah. Thank you, Roxanne, I appreciate it. Yep, and I'll be sending some stuff out. You're welcome to ask questions. We cannot engage in any dialogue. So you can reach out directly. What to do if she doesn't provide what you need. Great. Anybody online who wishes to address the town board? Okay, anybody else in person who wishes to address the town board? Okay. Going once. Anybody else online or in person? Opening up to everybody. Okay. Well,
Move to adjourn.
Second.